Well, I was recording a video on how riding a motorcycle is like wind therapy, but then things decided to get a little interesting. All right, well, let's hope people are better drivers today than they were a couple days ago when I was doing a short clip on the latest video I came out with going over the microphone I'm using. I kid you not, like as soon as I turned off the GoPro, I almost got hit like 3 different times within 5 minutes. It's one of those things that as a motorcyclist, I've learned that I absolutely hate intersections. And of course, that's when I was on a 2-lane road, so there were 2 lanes on my side, 2 lanes on the other side, and I was in the far right lane and going about 45, 50 miles an hour, which is the speed limit. And of course, I had a green light, but then, you know, as you're coming up on an intersection as a motorcyclist, you're always watching. You're looking both ways, looking at the guy that's going to be turning left, hoping he doesn't. That's what happened. Is there was a black pickup truck, and I saw him from a distance, and I'm like, man, I hope that guy sees me. And of course, he didn't. So right up until, I don't know, it was about right here to where that yellow sign is where he started coming out. And you know, as a motorcyclist, you have to plan your escape route. So I had 2 options. Slamming on the brakes probably wasn't going to be one of them. And I was like, this is going to be it. This is actually going to happen. And so freaking out a little bit. But 2 routes I was either going to do is I was either going to go left, and luckily there wasn't anybody directly behind me. I think I might have come close to cutting somebody off back there, but that's better than going this way. But then you got to think about, well, is he going to stop or is he going to keep going? Because then that also dictates which route you're going to take. So it ended up, I could see him kind of starting to slow down. So I went the right way, going around this way, and luckily, I mean, it was probably within a few feet of him coming up and hitting me, but that was scary. I absolutely hate intersections on a motorcycle. So that was the first time. And then 2 times after that on the same road, literally minutes apart, if that, going down back in the right lane, and then people coming out off the street on the right just pulled out. And for some reason it was all trucks. I don't know what these dudes or people in these big trucks not looking, but clearly I was coming down the road. Oh shit. All right, that that was scary. Almost hit a dog right there. Dang. Oh shit. All right, that like a magnet all of a sudden. But yeah, I was in those right lanes and those trucks were pulling out, and you know, luckily I had that extra lane to go out. But again, it's like, all right, are they going to pull out of my lane, or are they going to do the wide turn and go into the very left lane? And it's like, man, one of them I actually did have to kind of put on the brakes and kind of stop quite a bit. And it's like, man, so one thing I hate about motorcycles is people in cagers just don't watch. Whew, still got that adrenaline going and heart racing from that freaking dog. You know, it sounds bad, but I'd almost rather hit a dog than a deer. A deer's got a lot more mass. But anyway, the main thing I wanted to talk about on this video is that I wish I could actually live out here. No, that's not it. But no, it was funny. You know, you always hear people talk about, and always doing videos about, you know, how riding a motorcycle is their therapy. And before I got into motorcycles, I've only been into motorcycles for about 2.5 years now. Prior to that, no experience. Never been on one. I've been on the back of one, but that was it. And never, you know, been on dirt bikes or anything like that. So I'm always hearing, you know, bikers talk about how it's wind therapy. It's relaxing to be on a bike. And I'm like, man, I'm always hearing stories of people getting hit on bikes, or, you know, watching people on the bikes. And it's like, man, they're just getting beat up by bugs and the wind and the rain. I'm like, that looks like no fun, let alone dodging everything that's coming out at you. But it wasn't until I actually got comfortable riding a motorcycle that I realized that it is absolutely true. Riding a motorcycle is a version of therapy. And you know, they call it wind therapy because you're out here in the wind, and it is relaxing. You know, as a beginner, not so much, because you're worried about shifting and there's a lot going on. But as you get comfortable riding, like I have, man, I tell you what, I try to take this thing out as often as I can. No destination in mind most of the time. It's just literally riding, and then I go back home. Sometimes I'll take it out for errands or go wherever, but majority of the time it's after work. You know, work is stressful, super busy, talk to people all day. So what I want to do is just get on my bike and just go ride. And then that's when you can really think things over. You know, if you had a bad day or you got to come up with another thing, and it's just you and kind of the wind, really. I never understood it, and it's hard to put into words until you actually experience it. But every time I have a bad day or, you know, stressful, and I get out on the bike, and by the time I get back, I'm in a much better place. And most of the time I do come out here riding, you know, out in the country where there's no traffic, so I don't have to worry about going through those intersections and everything. I think the biggest thing I got to worry about out here are apparently dogs and you know, deer around this time of day or later. But other than that, man, it's really no traffic, and just I love the country, even though everybody's building around here, so it seems like we're losing a lot of that and you have to go further and further out. But it's just relaxing and therapeutic. You know, a lot of people do spend a lot of money on therapists, which, you know, you can buy a bike, which a bike is expensive, especially if you go with a Harley Davidson. We all know that. But therapists aren't cheap either, unless it's like something super crazy. You know, try riding a motorcycle. You may not get that experience initially when you're trying to ride and learn how to do the clutch and throttle and all that stuff, but you know, once you get over that and you don't have to think about shifting, is when it becomes a lot more relaxing and therapeutic at that point. And then just get out and ride. I rarely ride with anybody. I got a buddy that rides a 2020 Lowrider S with a stage 2, and we go riding every now and then. We went over this weekend, and while it's fun riding with somebody, you do have to pay attention to them and make sure, you know, nothing goes bad with that. And then of course on these bikes we're going fast and hard, so as relaxing as it is, you get more adrenaline going when you're, you know, flying down the highway and stuff like that. But it's still fun. But man, honestly, I really enjoy just being out here by myself riding. And that way I don't have to worry about, you know, other motorcyclists around me. Really no cars out here now, as you can see. There's nobody behind me, nobody in front of me. Sun's starting to set a little bit, and it's just relaxing. So I never got it or understood it until I did. Again, like I said, it's hard to explain. There's probably other YouTubers out there that have videos on it that can explain it a little bit better, but just one of those things, you got to try it, or maybe even get it on the back of somebody's bike. Like when my wife gets on the back of my bike, she loves it. All she's got to do is just look at the scenery, and you know, we can't really talk to each other because she doesn't have a comm system yet, but she loves getting on the back of the bike and coming out here, because otherwise she doesn't get to see this type of scenery out here. And kind of relaxing for her too, and she doesn't have to think about anything. So as a passenger, that'd be a nice thing, is just being able to kind of chill on the bike and enjoy the, you know, the sound and feel of the bike, plus the wind, and then whatever scenery you have going on. Which, it's funny because as much as I love this motorcycle, and I don't have any plans on selling it or trading it in or anything, but I have been finding myself looking at other bikes. Because, you know, when I first got into bikes a couple years ago, I was dead set on a Harley, so I didn't really see what else was out there. Obviously, I bought my Sportster before I knew how to ride, so I was kind of stuck with that. And, you know, at that point, I wasn't comfortable. I did go up to a dealership and sit on some other non-Harley motorcycles, but they just seemed too big and intimidating. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle that as a new rider. Like, I want something small and comfortable like the Sportster. But now, after I've been, you know, riding this bike around for a while and everything, it's like, man, I kind of want to see what like else is out there. Like the dealership down the street has a 2022 BMW R18, which would be kind of cool to check out. It's funny because the R18, which is basically a BMW's bagger, is cheaper than say a Road Glide. It's actually even cheaper than this bike, and it comes with a lot more. I'm not the biggest fan of the look of it. I don't like the way like the heads of the engine go out to the side. I think that's kind of weird looking, and not the biggest fan of the styling of the bike. But at the end of the day, the features that you get with it, and even the technology for less money, it's really tempting. I mean, how easy would it be for Harley to put a motorized windshield in this thing, or even the Road Glides, and they don't, where the R18 has one of those. The R18 has reverse, which, you know, I probably wouldn't use it that much, but there are cases when you're on the hill, and especially with the passenger, to be like, hey, reverse would be kind of nice. So I'm tempted to go maybe tomorrow, and then, because I called up there and I'm like, do you guys do demo days? Because they're also an Indian dealership, but they're not doing demo days, but they're like, hey, you come down and test drive anything you want. So I'm thinking maybe going to test and driving that. But I've also been looking at like more sporty bikes, and for whatever reason I'm stuck on the Yamaha MT bikes, like the MT-09, maybe the MT-7. I had no idea what that bike was, had no idea that it even existed until I saw Blockhead's video on him selling his. And at first I'm like, that bike looks terrible, like I don't like that. But then I started watching his other videos on it, some more people's, and then kind of looking at what you get for the money, and I'm like, man, you can get into a motorcycle for under 10 grand? No way. You can't get into Harley Davidson for that. So it's definitely something like, if I wish I could go back, knowing what I know now, within my motorcycle knowledge, and going back and maybe trying some other stuff before I settled on buying a bike. Because it would be cool. For the price of this, I could have maybe 2 different bikes. But I definitely want to go try test riding some of those Yamaha MT bikes. Probably start off on, one dealership actually has an MT-03 and 7. They might have the 09, but it'd be kind of cool just to go try out. So I think I'm going to start doing that. And, you know, the dealerships that are cool with you test driving, you know, without having like to pressure you into buying a bike, it'd be kind of cool to see what else is out there other than these Harley motorcycles, because they are super expensive. I know with the MT bikes, they're more of a naked bike, so I don't get the fairing and bags and all that stuff, but it's a different ride. I never thought I would be interested in riding a sport bike, but now it's like, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to it now, for sure. Like, I definitely want to try other bikes out and just see how they feel compared to Harleys. Maybe there's something I would like better. Hell, maybe I'll like the R18 better than this bike. I doubt it, but you never know. I like the price better. I've definitely decided after the close encounters the other day, and even that freaking dog today, man, I need to start just having the GoPros recording every time I ride. Because it seems like if I don't have them on, or I don't have them at all, either I miss something really cool or something crazy, and it's like I would love to have it on, but it is kind of a pain in the butt to have this GoPro on my helmet all the time, because it's actually in the way of my gauge there. But not a huge deal. It does weigh down the helmet a little bit more. So, and then the battery life on the GoPros suck. I do shoot in 4K. I could probably, you know, take it down to 1080 and it lasts a little bit longer, and they didn't have more room on the memory card, because 4K does take up a lot of memory. But I just like the look of the 4K footage way better. I would love to get an Insta360, because then if anything crazy does happen, I have a 360 view, because right now I'm kind of limited. Yeah, I got it pointed towards me in the road, but if something happens like to the sides, probably not going to show up on the GoPro. So Insta360 would be really cool, but I hate how expensive they are. it's like 500 bucks for just the camera, and then I'd have to get the motorcycle attachment for it. It's like, man, these GoPros weren't cheap. They weren't that expensive, but you know, I had to have 2 of them. But that's something I might look into, getting an Insta360 someday, then just have that going all the time, and then just use these for these types of videos when I want. But until then, I definitely think I'm going to have one at least, or both of these going most of the time I'm out riding now, just because, you know, there is some cool stuff that you know, for like short form content, but then there's other times it's like, man, if I do get hit, I would rather have that on video just in case. Yeah, today, just like most other days, got done with work and didn't have anything going on, and it's like, man, I'm just gonna go ride. I have no destination in mind. I do have kind of like a couple routes that I take, especially if I'm going to record a video. Like, I want to take a route that I know if there's going to be any obstacles in the road, you know, what traffic's going to be like. Usually I try and find roads that are going to have not a whole lot of traffic, to where I could, you know, still focus on the road but still also talk, because that does take a little bit of your attention away from the road. So I definitely like being on roads that I'm familiar with. But even when I'm not recording, I still have routes that I like to take, you know, things that are a little bit longer, and, you know, on roads that are a little bit higher speed limit. I could record the GoPro on the highway. It just doesn't sound as good with the, you know, the high wind on the highway. So I try to stick around, you know, around 50-ish or below for the video, just so the audio sounds a little bit better. Yeah, I find myself in the summer and even in the winter time, it's like, man, I could be more productive doing other stuff around the house, but it's like, I just want to go out and ride. Like, it is so relaxing until something happens, and then you're, you know, you gotta deal with that. But for the most part, when everything's going normal and fine, it's super relaxing, and it's just fun. And then you end up, like, I'll go on to other places I've never been. So you either find new cool routes to take, or roads that are, you know, fun. It's like, okay, well, I've never been that way, or I've never been there. Let's see what it's like. Let's take the bike out. Sometimes around here, especially the further outside of town I go, I do have to be careful and look out for dirt roads, because all of a sudden, like, a paved road will just turn into gravel. That's happened to me a couple times, and it's like, well, crap, I gotta turn around, because this bike does not like gravel roads. Definitely not an ADV bike, which would be another thing I would love to try out, like freaking getting into like some of the off-road stuff. That'd be kind of fun. And the cool thing is, my wife does not care that I spend my time out riding. Now, there are times where she's like, hey, I want to go. I'm like, cool, jump on the back, we'll go. Like tomorrow, which is going to be Friday, we're going to go to a dealership that's having a biker night, I guess you could call it. Really, all I'm going for is a free beer, maybe some free food, and a chance to win a bike. During the summer, they have these like once a month on the Friday, and then you enter a drawing for a chance to win a key. And then at the very last, dude, seriously, what is with people? Golly. It's been a bad couple days. But anyway, before I was rudely interrupted by U-Haul, at the end of the year, in September, they have their final bike night. And then everybody that's won a chance, I think they pick like 5 people per bike night. You all kind of get a line, you draw numbers, and then they have a box of keys. And I think this year they're having the keys to a Sportster S. And then basically you each take turns grabbing a key out of the box and seeing if the key you picked turns the bike on. And if it does, you win that bike. Now, the bad thing about that is, yeah, great, you win a Sportster S, brand new, but then they immediately want the sales tax. And that Harley dealership, I know, they're gonna be like, oh, well, we would have sold this bike for this amount of money because of the live market value. And so they're gonna try and get the most out of the sales tax. So that's the only downside. One guy was telling me that his wife won a Iron 883. And they were excited, and then the dealer's like, oh yeah, by the way, you owe us $3,500. It's like, what? So So that's something you got to think about when you're winning something big like that. Is, yeah, it's cool, you won it for free, but not really, because you got to pay the sales tax. I'm like, man, if I were to win that Sportster S, I don't know if there's an option to like take the money, like instead of like sell it back to the dealer and be like, hey, take the money, or do I just bite the bullet, pay the sales tax, and then try that bike out for a while, or maybe even sell it private party, see how much money you can get with it that way. I don't know. I'll make that decision if that time comes, which would be really cool. So now I am getting back into closer to town and more traffic. I'm gonna get some gas and probably end the video, because there's been a lot of things jumping out at me lately, so I probably need to pay attention to that. So I'm gonna get some gas and then probably keep the cameras on my way home, just to be safe. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts, and you know, if you use riding a bike as wind therapy. Again, like I said, my wife has no problem. Hell, today she's like, hey, you know, dinner's not gonna be done for a while, go ride your motorcycle. I'm like, okay. So yeah, let us know down in the comments if you guys do that too, what bike you have, and all that fun stuff. And if you guys like this content, consider hitting that like and subscribe button so you can be notified when I come out with more videos on this Lowrider SD. And who knows, if I win that bike, maybe you'll also get content on the Sportster S. So stay tuned for that. And if you guys want to know how I do these moto vlogs and the microphones I'm using, check out these videos here where I go over all of that. Thanks for watching. Ooh, that engine is hot.